Welcome. Another episode, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. We're going to talk about authentication, BAS, Beckett Authentication Services, mainly autographs. I'm here with Jeromy Murray. But first of all, thanking the sponsors, Beckett Media. Beckett Authentication actually is a great sponsor. So rather than, I don't consider the sponsors to be advertisers, I consider them to be sponsors, and it's nice to let them tell their story. And I don't know that it's heavily promoted, but if you're getting your cards authenticated or graded, you absolutely ought to be considering the Beckett versions of those services. They're not the same as others out there. I actually think they or we are better, but it's a free world. People should choose. I think some of the other SGC, PSA, they're worthy competitors and have a lot of things going for them in their own right. But we're going to talk about Beckett Authentication today with Jeromy, and I do have other sponsors besides Beckett Media. ComC, I know you're out there. I enjoy using your service. I obviously use all the Beckett products. Burbank Sports Cards, Rob Veras and I go way back, and I have a lot of fun with Rob and now Ryan at some of the national and other big shows. Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Mike Fruitman, he's been on a few times. He's a fun guy to be around. Bill Huggins at Huggins and Scott. I've bid in his auction and had fun lots that I've won there. I'm not going to tell you what lots I'm bidding on, but it's just fun to get an eclectic lot every once in a while. Heritage, they are just doing great. They're across town. They got some fantastic high-end lots. Again, worthy of your consideration. Then, of course, Topps, Panini, and Upper Deck, the card companies. But we're going to talk mainly today about Beckett Authentication Services with Jeromy Murray, who's the vice president over all that stuff. And Beckett Grading has been going on for a long time, and it's not on autopilot because there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of demand, a lot of supply, and I know but there's a veteran team that Jeromy has.
Absolutely.
Whereas BAS, and as well as the comic book, with the BAS is newer.
Yeah.
So tell us about the challenges of integrating BAS and how excited you are about that going forward.
Yeah. So we wanted to get into the authentication business for a while, for years. And with that, we had a great relationship with JSA for 4 or 5 years there. Worked with Jimmy and his crew over there, and they were fantastic. Still a great company. But we had the opportunity to start.
You realize Jimmy Spence started PSA DNA, then he came here. And now he's on his own, which I think he also kind of wanted to do.
Yeah, and he brought that up at the industry summit recently. He said he's kind of had his hands in all of the areas, which in training these guys.
He's a good guy. He's a good friend. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. So we worked with those guys. We had the opportunity to bring on some the big hitters in the industry. Steve Grad, Brian Cerbero from a competitor at the time. The relationship had ended, and we had the opportunity to bring those guys on. And these are guys that are well respected in the industry and that had a good following.
They have enough. They were going to do something.
They were going to do something.
And so, bringing them in, that just sounded terrific.
It was great. And we started this.
But you made a big splash.
Big splash.
This wasn't just we're switching out. No. It was a thrust into really jumping with both feet.
Yeah, and a discussion on what we could offer these guys, what they weren't getting before, and what we could do for them now. And so it wasn't just hey, you're hired, let's go. It was they were kind of shopping around and what they.
But it was a good combination of here's how they thought you ought to do it, and here's what worked that had already been proven in the thing. So it was a good marriage.
Absolutely, and it was started about 2016 at the end of that year. Sat down and got it up and rolling, and we truly jumped into this feet first. It was lucky that we had the experience of these guys, but I still remember we sat our first show in Chicago back in 2016 in November. We were in the hotel at the Hyatt handing out all the supplies and everything that we needed. It was our first jump in this. Like it was truly, we sat there and said, here's your laptop, here's our stickers, here's how we're going to do this. And we jumped in and did it. So the first show was, it was a good learning experience for us. And thank goodness they had done this before and done it because I was not.
Well, it's a different beast, I think. Is there friendly competition among these two teams? I mean, because you've got a grading team that just mainly does cards. Yeah. And they do autograph cards, but they're more certified autograph cards, right? So in the BAS, they do a very eclectic mix of stuff. Is there any banter or competition of we're busier than you are kind of stuff?
I don't think there's a competition. I think right now BGS is with any grading company is the monster. I think the same thing can be said with PSA.
Yeah.
But there is definitely banter and much more than what these guys have had before based on what they're saying. There was kind of a separation of the two divisions where they were before. And this is these guys talk, these guys interact, these guys text each other in pictures and things like that, which is exactly what we wanted when we brought this on. We want this to be a true.
I agree.
Bring up what you have to us and let us talk about it. And
Well, I'm
been
sure you
great.
promote that. I mean,
We do.
it needs to start at the top. Yeah, that's good. That's
We,
good.
we travel, we do events together, and we spend hours and hours together, and it's a learning experience for everybody involved there. But it's been fantastic for this past 3 years, and looking forward to what we can do going forward with each other. And it's not just in the U.S. So what we sat down with these guys when they came on board, and we talked about what they weren't getting before, what we could do now, and we've expanded international growth, doing a lot more international events that they haven't done before, bringing on some people that if somebody needs something done in some small town in North Dakota, we can get there. We'll get the staff there. And before they didn't really have that support, didn't kind of have that backing. They felt like it. And that was the thing we had to ensure them, and that we've got your back here. We want this to be successful.
Does it help? I mean, basically, BGS is always, it comes down to an opinion.
Correct.
BAS almost always comes down to an opinion.
Yeah.
But sometimes they can say, I am positive that this is authentic because I was there and I saw it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice for BGS? If you, a complete certainty that this is a 10.
Yes. Or that came out.
Because even if it just came right off the assembly line, it still could be imperfect.
Yeah.
But grading, I mean, but authentication, if it's an autograph that you were there, you were sitting next to the celebrity that's signing the thing.
But what's interesting about that, and what I've watched these guys over the past couple of years, is even when they're sitting there with somebody and they say, I watched this get signed, it could be such a messy autograph that they say, we can't slab this because there's...
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about that is you'll see a signature, and Steph Curry's one of the ones that Brian Ceballos knows that signature. But there's times that he's in such a hurry and scribble that you can't tell if my 3-year-old did that or if he actually did it. And that's a tough thing. And you say, I realize that it's there, but if we put that in a slab or we put our sticker on that, everybody else is going to use that against us for that. And just say that at that point, that one's inconclusive. That I can't slab that thing up. I can't.
So you're saying even if he was sitting there when he's signing it, you'd say, hey, Steph, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah. He's moved on. He's moved on to the next autograph and the group of people there. And he's not
I know, but if it's a pile, but if it's a person's thing.
I don't know if it's so much when you're at a show where someone is sitting there signing, they're taking a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But what's nice about our staff and our guys here, they're autograph chasers. They've been out there and they've chased these guys and they say, hey, I realize how this actor signs and this is not how he signs.
Right.
You know, you've got to have those guys that know that side of the thing. But yeah, it's, some of these guys don't take time. Some of the cards that we see that come in here are just lazy signatures. So they have to be careful with that.
I don't like it when I get autograph cards and I can't read. Or I have some autograph balls. Yeah. And I don't know who the person is. Yeah. And it seemed like there ought to be, by 6th grade or something, you ought to be able to have an intelligible signature. But I guess if you're writing your name that much, you got to.
And it depends on what kind of attitude. If you're behind a theater door and somebody comes out after 2 performances in a day and is just ready to go home and they're just scribbling on there just to get you out of the way, that's different. Yeah. That's different than what you may get at a show or get in another more calm situation.
Are they subject to burnout, the authenticators?
Oh, yeah.
Or do they have such variety though?
They do. What I've learned,
and they're different sizes, and I bet their mix is a lot more non-sport. I would think
there are different guys in our group that kind of specialize in different things, minor league players in baseball and non-sport and things like that. So you're bouncing ideas off of each other all the time. The burnout factor comes. These guys are road warriors, and they are on the road. If you ask Steve, he's on the road 450 days a year.
Right.
But truly, these guys are on the road 250 days a year.
Is it because this stuff? Because they've got to be at the shows, or are they visiting homes? Are they all the above?
All the above. It is that. It's where you could have,
because it's not easy to ship this stuff around. People are not going to let it out. I'm not saying they're priceless. Sure. But some of these items can be quite valuable.
Absolutely.
And not easily transportable, perhaps.
And in some of these shops and events that we go to, they have huge collections, and you can't ship hundreds upon hundreds of hockey sticks like we run into up in Detroit. Yeah. And the guys have to show up there, and you have public drop stuff off and things like that. So we try to get to wherever we can and mix in the auction houses and mix in house calls.
Gotcha. And what about appraisals or any of that kind of stuff? Is that handled more through the auction house?
It is.
They bring you in to...
They will. And what's nice with that, we've got great relationships with some of the major auction houses in the industry, and we say, hey, this piece really needs to go to this auction.
Okay.
It needs to go there, or hey, this is probably one that you can sell on your own. Put that on eBay and get rid of it that way. So we try to help that. We don't really facilitate that. Our job is kind of just to say it's good or it's not good or we can't tell right now.
One of my, not crusades, but one of my thoughts that I brought up with various people in the industry is having a better situation for widows.
Yeah.
Assuming most collectors are men and they most collectors have bad health habits,
Yeah.
or a lot of them do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when people pass away, then the widow has to deal with
Yeah.
things. And so it'd be nice if there were some services that were looking out for the widows and providing authentication as part of that. The collector may know the provenance and all that, but the widow might not. And you probably need a third party, and you need a trusted auction source that knows that, like you said, some of this stuff you're wasting your time on eBay, or you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
If you're a zero feedback seller of a really nice item, not a good idea.
And we talked about that as we educate people, especially in the Comic-Con world. That we've started to go to more Comic-Cons and do autograph authentication there. And these guys are passionate about getting their favorite actor to sign that, and they say, "Why do I watch it get signed? Why do I want to have it authenticated?" And it's that same thing. What happens when you're not here? What are you going to do with it? And say, "Hey, no one's going to believe that you had it signed there." I know that JSA, when we work with those guys, and a plug for those guys a little bit, is they do have kind of that service where they help kind of the appraise. And I don't know if it's still there, but they did at the time where it's that. But we try to tell people it is great to have it, but you can't sell that in an international market right now. You can't sell stuff by just saying, "I promise I watched this get signed by this person." You're going to have some authentication on it.
So selfie in it won't work.
More. And I tell people it's great to have a picture, but what happened after that picture? What happened is
I swapped it out.
Yeah, that's what you could say. It's like, okay.
You can beat any system.
Yeah,
every system can be beaten, except that once you bring it here. Now, what percentage of the items? It seems like when you get a card graded, a very high percentage of them are slab.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the deal.
Yeah.
With the Beckett Authentication, it's not that. I mean, there can be stickers.
Sure.
There could be slabs. So what's the mix there for that?
It's not as much slab.
Because not everybody wants a slab of an item.
No, and it's a little more costly to have the piece slabbed. You got to have some room to store that, especially like 8x10 photos. If you can stack those in a binder or pile those up like they have at a show, it's much easier to store that than slabbed. So it's most of the stuff is probably not slabbed because of just the size of it and just the
it could be three-dimensional too.
But it's much more than what you would think that's there. We would get some really large orders of, especially with these minor league players, that people have hundreds upon hundreds of these cards, and they just want to slide it up in a case because it looks better, it sells better.
To be slabbed. It's substantial. It's protected as well.
Yeah.
And we've talked about in Beckett grading, there's a training process that is intense and takes a while.
Yeah.
But what's your training process if your business for BAS doubled? Yeah. Don't you have to find somebody that already has a lot of insight about autographs and authenticity, or on some of these other categories? That's tricky. Yeah. I mean, you could train them in the procedures, but if they don't really know, that'd be tough. I mean, I used to be an autograph collector, and I would know the players that I knew, but to be that vast coverage of all these fields is, my hat's off to these people.
Yeah, it is.
Because you can't look them all up. You can't go into your exemplars for every little one. Some of you got to say, this is, in fact, I sat with Spence back in the day when he was working with y'all. And basically, he'd make 3 piles.
Yeah.
These, and thankfully, Jeromy, there's a little tiny pile over here on the left of these are obviously bad.
Yeah.
There was a huge pile on the right, which was these are obviously good.
Yeah.
And then there was a kind of a little bit of a pile in the middle of I'm going to have to look at these.
Yeah.
Okay. But there were very few. He said this is, and they were the secretarials, those kind of things, to where this isn't, it's not what, this is the known non-signature of that celebrity. Yeah. But the middle ones were like obscure guys. And things like that.
It blows my mind how these guys can go through these autographs and pick those up and say, these are definitely bad.
It's a different person that signed it in most cases.
Yeah.
So there's any number of tells, I think.
And I've sat with them and gone to some house calls just as I'm learning this, and our guys are so good and know this well enough that they say, let me guess where you got these in this location about this time. And the guy's like, yes, how did you know that? Because I know exactly who signed these. Yeah. I know where they came from, and they're not any good. Well,
and there'll be a stack of them. It's the same guy, and there's 3 or 4 in a row, and they all look exactly the same. They're not auto pen, but they're well, we're essentially out of time.
Wow, we goes fast.
But we will definitely, again, we'll do it again, but we'll talk about something different. I appreciate your insights about what's going on in the industry. There's a lot of excitement with prices continue to rise, and most of the prices, when they're talking about record prices, it's slabbed cards, or authenticated memorabilia, and a very high percentage of that, a significant percentage of that is under the Beckett Media brand. So thanks for your part in continuing to. It does still have my name on it, so I will, for that and other reasons, I want you and the company to do well. So keep up the good work, and we will talk again. Thanks, listeners. Be back tomorrow with another episode.
The man in the house of cards, the man in the is doing, Colorado?